So, welcome back to Third Age Reforged and to another battle replay, and I was umming and ahhing about what battle to record next, and there is another one that I have on another new map, which was dubbed the Witch-King Sanctum in the replay file name, which I do want to get round to because it looks like it is a wonderful, lore-friendly battle, but it is also absolutely enormous, and this is the last video that I was going to record today, so I'll leave that one to be recorded for another session, I think, the next session that I record on, because I don't want to burn out halfway through a video, especially not one that has as much promise as that. But this one is also very large at 33,000 frames, so it gives you an idea of how long the other one probably will end up being. And this is on another new map called LINHIR, although I think this one was actually part of the first map pack that was released. We haven't actually seen it as of yet, so it is obviously a Linden-themed settlement, I believe, or at the very least it kind of is. I mean, these buildings look more sort of human in nature, but based on the docks here and based on the name, it certainly would suggest a more Linden-y focused map. And it's not exactly lore-friendly, this battle, but it does pose an interesting question, because they're essentially, who's the better slave drivers, basically? Is it going to be the elves or the dwarves? The dwarves are going to be on the attack today with their various underlings in the shape of orcs and evil men, and Linden are going to be defending their settlement with, again, their choice of evil men and orc slaves, as it were. So we'll go through the attackers first of all, which are going to be the red team today. And obviously this settlement is made up, there's a lot of water, so there's going to be a few choke points which lead into the settlement here, and obviously around the back as well, so it is a very nice defensive settlement, but we'll see if the defenders are able to cover every angle, because while each choke point is fairly narrow, there are quite a few of them, so it's going to be difficult, I think, to cover them all. We'll start off over here with the dwarves. So the dwarves obviously coveting the elven lands, they want to take them for themselves, and they are getting all of their slaves in mobilised to do it, and this is going to be Infinity 7, so he's got some iron foot crossbows. Erebor, of course, very effective in the current patch, I believe. Like, I don't think the morale issues that they suffer from are enough to detract from the fact that they are very strong, and they're also very easy to play, in my view. Like, it's, again, much like Linden in the last patch, I find it's very difficult, actually, to see Erebor play badly. We've also got some axe throwers, so another very, very nice unit of ranged. Over here, obviously, a little bit more up close and personal, but a fantastic Phalanx Buster. Then we have some elite units, the Dragon Slayers and the Obsidian Guard, very, very strong, backed up by a core of Ironfoot Warriors and Spears, the heart and soul of most Dwarven armies. Erebor Legionaries for a bit more quality, more axe throwers, and then also a Phalanx in the shape of those Halberdiers, so a good all-around army there. Some quality, not as much as the Dwarves would do with equal funds, I think, but even so, their infantry lineup is still going to be absolutely top-notch. Then, the first of their underlings, we have Joxim, who's going to be playing as Isengard, so he has got some Uruk-hai archers here. He has deployed the stakes, so he is ready. But he has also got the rest of his army over on the other side of the water here. He's got some Dunlending clansmen. They don't have the armour upgrade here, but obviously, you know, it's a very cheap unit. It's not free like the other Orc factions get access to, but at the very least, it offers you a unit which you can potentially use to just zone out cavalry for not an awful lot of money. It's got some Uruk-hai crossbows over there, of course, on either side. Also some Dunlending berserkers. Also have an anti-cavalry bonus, but of course their main purpose is as shock infantry with those big bilateral axes. We have some Uruk-hai archers back here just for some ranged pressure. Uruk-hai pikemen and Uruk-hai infantry, the heart and soul of any Isengard army. And then we have some half-orc spear guard at the back with some more infantry. And then finally, way over here on the road, we have Joxim's general, which is of course going to be the Nazkai. In a setting like this, it would be. More open settings, the champions of the White Hand may be more common, but in a siege like this, you can't really beat what the Nazkai bring to the table. Then we have Froggy, who's going to be playing as Rhudaur. He has got some Dunman spearmen ready to be mobilised and into the settlement. He has also got some Dunman hunters and more spears, so a lot of Dunman units here just to put some early pressure on the enemy. And then out here on the farmlands, he has got some more serious units, the Rhudaur Swordsman, the bread and butter of any Rhudaur force. We also have the Rhudaur clansmen, who have the armour upgrades that will make them even more resilient with those big shields as well. Makes them a tough nut to crack, especially from archers. More Rhudaur swordsmen. Some Witch-Realm enslavers here in and amongst the trees. Very nasty looking tridents that they wield, armour piercing of course. Then mixed in with the Franadine pikes, we of course have a catapult, which in a siege like this, heavily based around choke points, could be a real match winner. Some Rhudaur swordsmen here as well, in and amongst the carts and the hay on the field. And then finally, the final attacking army, we have Angmar, played by BMK Overlord of the Dark Cloud. He's got some Witch-Realm Inquisitors, as well as some Trolls of Gundabad and Angmar. He's also gone for some Blackwatch Legion, as well as some Witch-Realm Hammer Guard, some upgraded Guardians of Khan Doom, Then at the back here he's gone for some Angmar Marauders. I'd imagine there's a couple of hidden units as well, but it does look as though he's gone for quite a few more expensive units, so his army's probably going to be smaller than his allies, but still, Angmar with their quality can be a real danger. There's no witches by the looks of things, which I'm sure some people will be happy about, but you don't need the witches as Angmar to be effective on the attack. You've got these trolls, you've got mass pushing units in the Blackwatch Legion, you've got some very, very solid infantry indeed. Now, moving on, we have the defending slave drivers, who are going to be Linden, Dark God Morgoth, so evil Linden. They are going to be defending their home today, and he's got some 4 Linden archers across the way here. Deploying those stakes, but it's not going to be too... Well, I mean, it will stop the Witch-Ram Inquisitors from just charging right into them, but it won't stop the trolls from doing that. Also some Harl Linden infantry to back them up. The rest of his army, much further afield, it must be said. Leaving them to the mercy of those trolls is not terribly advised. He has got some Mithlon Lancers. Those javelins could do some damage, but generally speaking a lot of javelins tend to miss troll units because they're so far apart, they're quite sparse, but we'll see. Mithlon Marines up on this natural dirt rampart, or I guess rock is more accurate there. 4 Linden Archers as well, so good ranged force up on the walls, as well as some Mithlond Pikemen, obviously some quality pikes, which should be good for holding Angmar at bay as long as the trolls are dealt with. We also have the mighty Noldorin Blade Masters, of course, a very, very strong unit. Some Mithlond Marines, some Mithlond Swordmasters, so some heavy Elven Swordsmen here. Some Harlinden Guard up on the walls as well, so more range pressure coming down this way. And then finally, back here, we have some Noldorin Guard and a second unit of Noldorin Blade Masters, so really splashing the cash on those Blade Masters. They're very good, but going to the red limit on a General's Bodyguard unit like that can be risky, because you've got to remember, it's only 63 men. If you do spend too much at the detriment of the rest of your army, it isn't worth it, but we'll see. Linden, they're up against the most quality-centric army here, so maybe numbers won't be all that important for them. Their allies, however, we start off with Thick Dick, who's going to be playing as Harad. He's got some dismounted Serpent Guard and some Trollmen. Good combination indeed. Obviously a lot of damage there, maybe not so much in the way of defences, however, for either of them, especially the Trollmen when they run out of hit points. Demons of the Desert, obviously really, really damaging if they get into the right position. Upgraded dismounted Serpent Guard are a little bit tougher. We've got some Mahud Beast Hunters as well as a lot of Southrons, including the armour-piercing Pikemen and Warband, getting ready to receive the Isengard assault. And then moving on, we have some more Trollmen over here, and then obviously the mighty champions of Nafarat as well. So it does look as though a little bit more of a quality-centric army, some Southron archers and some Mahud units as well, just to pad things out a little bit more. But again, this is going to be a Harad army which lives and dies on the strength of its Trollmen, I think. And then finally, the player who sent me the battle replay is going to be Steward of Dale, who's going to be playing as the Orcs of the Misty Mountains, so the Goblins are going to be under Linden's employ today. Black Orcs of the Mountains over here, Cave Troll Drummers, which is kind of a must in this sort of situation for them, just so their army doesn't run away in the face of some pressure from Erebor. Cave Trolls, Blackback Mountain Berserkers are here, some Black Orcs, a lot of Mountain Orc hosts, which for the time being are actually a very efficient unit to bring as the Misty Mountains. For what they cost, they can really punch above their weight. So if you want to play the Misty Mountains, I would highly suggest spending the extra that the Mountain Orc hosts cost in comparison to the Heavy Goblins, because the Heavy Goblins are not quite as good. The Spears are still very much worthwhile getting, because obviously they're good at holding the line, and the armour piercing is useful, but the regular Heavy Goblin Infantry aren't a patch on the Mountain Orc host. Heavy Goblin Crossbows, Goblin Infantry and Snaga Skirmishers ready to maybe try and ambush the Dwarves on the way forward. There's the Mangonel, I'll be interested to see if that can work from up here. There's some Heavy Goblin Crossbows and more Skirmishers up on the wall, and then also some White Uruk Fearmongers as well. So, without further ado, let us begin. And the first order of business will certainly be over here, because the Dwarves and the Misty Mountains start so close to one another. Their deployment zones are practically on top of each other, and the Dwarves have got quick access through that choke point as well. Whether they take it or not remains to be seen. 9-foot crossbows are reloading, but what are they actually firing at here? Doesn't look like they're firing at anything just for the time being. They're just reloading. Here you can see some Heavy Goblin Spears also moving across the Snaga Skirmishers, revealing themselves, which may not be too advisable, because it's possible the crossbows may view even a low tier unit of javelins like this as worthwhile to shoot. Trolls of Gundabad starting to fire. You can see, however, they're coming under immediate arrow fire from the elves, but to be honest with you, Angmar won't mind that one bit. These trolls will be able to stand up to that sort of arrow fire for a long time and absorb an awful lot of the elven ammunition, which will be much better spent on Angmar's ultimately quite small force. Nothing on that. So Angmar will need to be careful here. certainly. I think they need to work in tandem with Rhudaur especially. Uruk-hai archers here across the bridge, trying to do some damage to the Haradrim, the Southrons, as they move forward. And they will be able to do that, although I think they are actually going to retreat yet further. Harad are just going to get into a position. Probably now that, Isengard could probably get away with just standing their ground and firing a few more shots into them, to be honest with you. The Southron Warband may be shielded, but their armour and shields are not particularly fantastic. And honestly, Harad need to be a little bit careful here, because they're probably going to come under the most scrutiny early on, with Rhudaur also pushing in from their flank, Linden being across the docks. Not really going to have to deal with that right from the off. Here you can see some Goblin infantry are shaken, getting in the way of the retreating crossbows and Snaga, and trying to stop the forward march of the Ironfoot warriors, which isn't likely to go all that well. They do have an armour upgrade here, the Goblin infantry, but that is almost certainly not going to be enough against the power of the Ironfoot warriors. Coming into a system, however, are going to be some heavy Goblin spears. The AP may be enough actually to give that slight edge to the Goblins there, especially as the Ironfoot warriors are not upgraded. Maybe it will be enough. Meanwhile, Uruk-hai archers coming back once again. The Southron archers will be able to return fire, so again, bit of a wet noodle contest. Both of these two archers are not particularly fantastic, but it's probably better for the attackers that they can do this, take away more of the defending ammunition, because obviously the defenders, whenever you're outnumbered in a siege like this, you want to be able to use your ammunition on worthwhile targets. Ashari Stalkers have revealed themselves, which Rangers, not really the sort of thing that Rhudaur would want to be facing. Their faction is certainly not well known for being very well armoured, and those Ashari Stalkers will be able to rip through, especially if they get into position there. That's going to be brutal. I think Rhudaur, they need to move in quickly. They need to spread in, otherwise if they get caught up in this choke point, those Rangers are going to tear through the Rhudaur army on its approach. It's already too late now. Rhudaur had an opportunity there to flood into the settlement and they didn't take it, and they may live to regret that. Meanwhile, what's going on here? Witch Realm Inquisitors sort of skirting the back of the settlement and trying to go right around the houses. There's a trebuchet under construction there as Angmar begin to set up and ready their assault on Linden. Angmar need to be careful though. Linden has definitely got the most quality of all the defenders, and if they charge in unthinkingly, their relatively small army will be sent packing equally as quickly. And that will not be good. Angmar need to be here to keep up the pressure. They need to time their advance with Rhudaur very nicely, I think. But Erebor already in. They've only got a single unit of Ironfoot warriors. And to be honest, there's some Haradrim over here as well, which is probably the green light for Isengard and Rhudaur to start thinking about moving in, to be honest with you. I definitely think they would be best off. Because Harad being in the middle and having to really guard two choke points, they have the biggest task. So if they're sending over support units to help out the Misty Mountains, that's a good sign for you that you're going to be able to bust through their defensive points. Meanwhile, more Ironfoot warriors coming in. The Ironfoot axe throwers are now in place, which this unit should be pretty good at dealing with units like Mahud Berserkers, but in come the cave trolls. I mean, this is going to get some sort of response from the dwarves, as the whole dwarven army is on the move, really. But with the cave trolls in here, the dwarves are going to need to do something, because they're going to be able to do a lot of damage to these Ironfoot warriors. They may not be up to the same level as like Olag High or Trolls of the White Hand, but they can still dish out a good amount of punishment to a basic unit like the Ironfoot warriors. And that's exactly what will happen unless a unit of more quality is sent in, and I don't think the spears are really ideal, but I mean, it's better than nothing, I suppose. Misty Mountains have got a really nice firing position as well, up on the natural fortifications. Meanwhile, Isengard continuing to trade blows with Harad from afar. Not really either side's forte, though. What is going on? Trollman of Harad over here? Whatever happened to the Hashari Stalkers? Well, wherever they may be, they are not firing at the moment, and because of the dismounted Serpent Guard, they're easily going to be able to hold Rhudaur and Angmar at bay over here. Meanwhile, I mean, this is a big move. Early on in this fight, I mean, Angmar's just laying it all out on the line. It really is all or nothing for Angmar at this point. Just charging on in there. Oh, they do have the Witches. How did I miss them? Well, I mean, this is going to be devastating. Right into the middle of the Noldorin Guard, pretty much killing off that entire unit of 4 Linden Archers. But better the 4 Linden Archers than the Noldorin Guard, to be honest with you. I mean, this is something I don't think Linden was expecting, because it's certainly not something I was expecting, although to be fair, Linden's defence, because it was caught napping like this, it was clearly the right thing for Angmar to do. Another very nice hit from the Witches there, right into the centre mass of the Mithlon Swordmasters. Some Linden Javelin fire is now coming in here as well. Bit of friendly fire there. Still killing off more of the Mythlond units than trolls, but you really don't want to be killing off your trolls if you can help it. And also, a lot of these shots are actually not doing a ton of damage. They're not actually hitting into the centre mass of something like the Noldorin Blade Masters. And the longer that Linden are able to hold here, the more damage their archers can potentially do. But obviously this is I think a bit of a panic is starting to set in now. The Wardens of Elos Tyrion, he's just wanted to shoot into Angmar, but all he's accomplishing is shooting his arrows into the dirt, really. That's a tragedy for Linden. So Angmar doing well so far. Meanwhile, Harad managing to hold up quite well so far. Some Rhudaur Swordsman on the front line, and now some Trollmen, I think, of getting into melee. They need to do so a little bit more quickly than they're doing, though, because they're coming under fire. Yeah, get my words out. Under fire. But now the Trollmen are here. Yeah. To be fair, though, with how well things are now suddenly going for Angmar, Rhudaur can get away with just a slow burn, because if Angmar are able to bust through, they're going to be able to come to the support of Rhudaur, and then the dominoes will start to fall, presumably. Dunlending Clansmen against Southron Warband. Southron Warband should be winning that fight, really. Maybe the ranged support from Isengard is simply too much. Meanwhile, over here, the dwarves are the ones that are actually struggling the most. The Ironfoot Axe Throwers are trying to make a dent, and to be fair, they are. They're doing some damage, but the dwarves are really at the mercy of those crossbows, which is the last place you want to be. Like, I rag on Erebor for their crossbows, but doesn't matter what faction they're from, they will still do a ton of damage. Meanwhile, Angmar, the Witch Realm Inquisitors are in behind the line now, and Linden. The situation continues to deteriorate, really, for Linden. The balance of forces is evenly matched, which is a testament to Linden's individual quality in melee. The fact that still the game is viewing it as an evenly matched fight. But now in come the Trolls of Angmar, going after the Wardens of Elos Tyrion. The last hope that Linden really had, I think, for stopping Angmar is gone. But I mean, Angmar's army was so small that, I mean, this is pretty much all of it, and it is going to be taking losses. So I mean, victorious they may be, Angmar won't have a ton of units that they can send over to help their allies, but I mean, the fact that they've been able to wipe away Linden is a big win, and definitely puts the attackers in the ascendancy moving into the later stages of this fight. Nice rear charge there, though, from the Mythlon Lancers. Again, the best thing that Linden can do at this point is just to try and kill off as much as Angmar as they're able. If they can make sure that Angmar are virtually a non-factor when it comes to trying to help Rhudaur and Isengard through their choke points, then they've done their job. Like, you've just got to roll with the punches sometimes. Yeah, they're going to lose on that flank, but they can still make the situation work for them. Harad is still holding up very well under this moderate Rhudaur pressure over here. The Rhudaur Swordsman and the Snaga are just not going to be enough to break through the Trollmen and the Serpent Guard. Hood Berserkers ready to charge in if needed as well. Black Orcs. So this is good to see the Misty Mountains not just content with how well they're doing against the dwarves. They're going to send over support to other sections of the field that need their help. The White Orc Fearmongers have come forward, and that's going to be pretty much the end of days for these dwarves. But the Axe Throwers and the Crossbows now are going to be able to tee off into what remains of these Misty Mountains troops. The Misty Mountains have had the better end of this engagement, but it's not as if they've lost absolutely nothing. And so far, I would say, the Snaga Skirmish is trying to do something as well, but they're immediately getting shot up by those crossbows as well. The Misty Mountains will probably view this, though, as the fact that, you know, the dwarves are using ammunition now in a fight that I've already gotten a good amount of value out of. I'm okay with that. Some Mythlon Marines that Linden did manage to save. What's going on over here? Linden trying to save their Wardens of Elos Tyrion. If they're able to do that, that's a big win for them as well. They've got some Harlingen Guard leaving as well. Do they have anything they can cover their retreat with, though? I don't think so. They're scurrying away pretty quickly, but I mean, it doesn't matter how swift the elves are, they're not going to be able to escape a horse at full gallop. Especially not one of the chosen mounts of the Witch King himself. And there he is. His blade. Meanwhile, over here, what have we here? This is a nasty looking unit. I thought that was one of Angmar's units that had come over for a second then, but it's not, it's the Black Uruk. So the Misty Mountains, seeing the danger perhaps that this represents, they're going to be sending in a unit of their own to try and help shore things up. There are now some upgraded Rhudaur clansmen in and amongst this assault as well. Not the most damaging unit, but they'll be difficult to kill off quickly. There are the Hashari Stalkers, which, I mean, Froggy knows they're there, so he's going to be keeping a constant eye on them, and as soon as they pop into existence as they have, to move or maybe shoot, the Dunman Hunters are immediately going to just expose them to all of the fire that they're able to. The Southron Pikemen are over there. What's going on here? Some dead Hashari by the looks of things, so I think perhaps those standard Hashari got themselves charged by the Inquisitors, which is unfortunate for them, but better that than the Wardens of Elos Tyrian, I suppose. Can never underestimate the effect a unit of Rangers can have, as we learnt in the last battle we saw when they got 1,000, well, when the Wanderers of Nimrodel got over 1,000 kills. Now, Javelins, Isengard very keen to take the skirmish heavy approach here, which is not the worst idea in the world against Harad, to be honest with you. The wooden and wicker armour is not necessarily the best defence against arrows. Isengard a little bit hardier in terms of their equipment, perhaps. Meanwhile, what's going on over here in the Misty Mountains Erebor engagement? It does look as though Erebor are finally inside the settlement now. The White Uruk Fearmongers finally crippled from all of that axe thrower and crossbow fire. But a pretty big cost on the dwarves here. Having said that, there was quite a lot of goblins and a unit of Mahood as well, which the dwarves were able to kill off. The real test of this will be whether or not the dwarves have expended too much ammunition at this stage. They still have a good army in reserve. Interesting. They're going to be using the Mangonel now. I mean, if it manages to, the Mangonel's a weird beast. I mean, if it can hit into the centre mass of these units, it could do a devastating amount of damage. But I mean, it's such a temperamental thing to use. You can't really base any sort of strategies around it because you never quite know what you're going to get out of it. But it's still a fun thing to use nonetheless. You can see here Angmar's army moving forward, but you can see how much damage that Lyndon was able to do. It was a very brutal fight over here. It was one that Angmar were ultimately able to win, but at a very big cost, to be fair. They still have some Hammer Guard, they still have a handful of Guardians and Khandim, as well as a unit of cavalry, which in a settlement like this, which has a fairly large amount of space to rove around in with a unit of cavalry, is a very useful thing. So the Witch-Ram Inquisitors proving themselves to be a good pick. The Southron Pikemen now getting into a more densely packed formation as Angmar starts to come for them. I don't think Angmar are actually going to be able to get to Rhudaur in order to support them. Not with these crossbows. There's more berserkers as well. Rhudaur might not need the support though, not necessarily. To be fair, these Black Uruks, the mountains, when they've been added to the front line, they have actually just stopped Rhudaur dead in their tracks. Not the best news for them, but Froggy, utilising those Trollshaw axe throwers. The Black Uruks do technically have a shield, but it's not a big value because it's strapped to their backs. So not a bad target to go after with them at all. Doesn't fancy the chances of the defenders in this battle, apparently, the announcer. Here goes the Uruk-hai, or not the Uruk-hai, the heavy goblin crossbows, firing into just the... I'm not sure, they could have gone for the Witch-Ram Inquisitors there. Instead, the Witch-Ram Inquisitors following through with a very nasty charge there into the Mahout Berserkers. Nasty stuff. And then they're going to charge off. The Mahout, I think, are just going to try and shore up this line, and if the cavalry comes back, the crossbows may try and hit them again, but they're already shaken. Goes to show how scary the Angmar high tier units can be. The Mithlon Lancers are coming in here, I think, just to try and prevent the Witch-Ram Inquisitors from running amok in the settlement now. But obviously the Witch-Ram Inquisitors are going to absolutely butcher the Mithlon Lancers when it comes to a melee fight. Meanwhile, still not really anything too special going on here between Isengard and Harad. Harad continuing to hold the line, including some Misty Mountain support from the Snaga. Some poison arrows coming in from the Serpent's Fangs as Isengard continues to move forward. But Isengard haven't genuinely committed yet, which I don't think is wrong of them, to be fair. I think waiting for a little bit longer. But I do think the time is fast approaching where they need to do something, because I don't think the Dwarves fancy moving in with the Mangonel right there with the crossbows ready to pin them again. Angmar is not going to be able to follow through the momentum of beating Lyndon further into the settlement, at least not too much further. And Rhudaur is just sort of still stuck a little bit. They could try and wait for Rhudaur to break through, but I don't know. I kind of like the idea of Isengard seizing the initiative here and trying to push forward with everything they have. Because I feel as though the only one that would be really punished for charging in with everything at the moment would be the Dwarves, just because... Don't you just love a good crash? I love it when the game crashes halfway through a replay. Anyway, as we rejoin the action, I'm not going to go over there because that's where the game crashed last time. I'm not entirely sure why. We shall go back over to here, and we can see the Orc Mangonel has shifted its focus from the dwarves and is instead going to have a look down there at the very appetising looking blob that the Uruk-hai are currently forming. Speaking of which, Harad are also teeing off now into Isengard with both their Hashari Stalkers as well as the Serpent's Fangs, although it looks like they just ran out of ammunition as they pulled out their Shotels. There goes the Mangonel. You can see that it is doing the sort of firework effect that it has, and that should be enough to do. Yeah, you can see there all of the Uruk-hai there are shaken. The thing is, there isn't really anything there to capitalise on that. If they had been charged perhaps just by these Beast Hunters even, that might be enough to cause them to break. That is the Mangonel's best purpose, although obviously in the hands of the Goblins of the Misty Mountains that can often be causing your own men to break. Here come the Cave Trolls though from the Misty Mountains now as well. There aren't many Mithlon Lancers left, but it looks as though this is finally going to be the end for Angmar. They and Lyndon really did a number on one another, cancelling one another out. But that is better for the attackers ultimately, because it just goes from a 3v4 to a 3v2. You can see there are still some Lyndon forces as well, so you could even say that maybe Lyndon had the better end of that. But ultimately, of course, there's still much more in terms of manpower from the others on display. You can see the showering fire of the Orc Mangonel continuing to make life difficult for Isengard as they move forward. A lot of javelins as well. The Mountain Uruk Coast meeting the advance of the Uruk-hai infantry. The Mountain Uruk Coast is pretty much the equivalent of the Uruk-hai infantry, to be honest with you, only cheaper. They really are probably too efficient at the moment, to be honest, for what they cost. And at this point, the onus is once again on the dwarves. The dwarves at this point, I think, are being too slow. The heavy goblin, you have to sort of keep tabs on what's going on throughout the battle. Like I did say that the dwarves are probably the ones more than anyone else who could get away with being more defensive in this situation purely because of the situation they were facing. But at this point, more and more resources from the Misty Mountains have been siphoned off to other areas of the field, and your allies are struggling. Angmar is gone. Isengard is finding it very difficult to break through because of all of the ranged fire they're under, both artillery and through archers. In fact, here comes yet another shower of fire. That was a lot of damage that hit did as well, actually. Occasionally, the Mangonel surprises you with how much damage it can do. Rhudaur, on the other hand, they are now moving in, but Rhudaur can't do this alone. Like, now is the opportunity as the attackers to really start turning the screw, and I think the dwarves can do that. The crossbows will have more limited ammunition now, and you shouldn't really be too afraid of archers as the dwarves. Your armour and shields will allow you to stand up to most of that damage. The Wardens of Elos Tyrion will probably always be a bit of a concern, but yeah, you can see you're kind of missing your opportunity here now because the Mangonel's on the way back. But you can see that Isengard are actually pushing forward. I think now, seeing that Rhudaur are sort of heading into the town, then Harad are going to pull back a little bit, allow them in, and without their Lyndon overlords here, maybe Harad and the Misty Mountains can claim this place as their own. Not really sure who this gentleman is, but there he is. Here we can see the Mountain Uruk Coast blocking the rather limited advance of the dwarves, just crossbows that are out of ammunition as well as a few very, very depleted spearmen are the only offerings that the dwarves have attacking into the settlement. I think now the rest of their army is following suit, which is good to see, because now is the opportunity that the attackers have probably been waiting for, to put the defenders under a little bit more pressure. Although you can see here that these Ironfoot spears, I should say, are going to be absolutely monstered by the Blackback Mountain Berserkers. Not going to be a good time at all for them. Black Uruks, the mountains, running this direction, and perhaps seeing the fact that these Uruk-hai crossbows are completely exposed, and perhaps trying to help cover the retreat of some of the other heavy goblin units, because in come the cave trolls now. The Uruk-hai are going to try and catch up with the heavy goblin crossbows, but they're not going to be successful here. The cave trolls will get to them. And more worried, well, the Black Uruks are now going to retreat. Yeah, this unit of Uruk-hai infantry is only 36, well, there was 36 of them, now they're getting pummeled into the dirt by those big stone hammers and those tree logs. In comes some heavy goblin spears as well. I mean, this is going to be certainly a rearguard action from this unit of heavy goblin spears, I would imagine, because the cave trolls can more easily escape, and they will be a bigger asset later on in the battle as well, just for a bit of a damage spike. But that very depleted unit of Uruk-hai infantry at the very least has been pounded into the dirt. Heavy goblin crossbows heading backwards as well. Some dismounted serpent guard and some black Uruks also. Serpent's fangs, yes indeed, they are out of ammunition. You can see They do have their weapons drawn, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either. It gives them another unit of quality that they can use on the front line. Here you can see just some out of ammunition heavy goblin crossbows, making life just that little bit more awkward for the Dwarves of Erebor here. Of course, these Ironfoot warriors will be able to smash their way through the crossbows pretty quickly, but they're just here to get in the way and allow time for Harad and the Misty Mountains to set up. There are a couple of Linden units as well, to be fair, including the Warns of Alos Tyrion, who are actually firing at something. Are they actually managing to clear that house? Kind of. Yeah, I mean, they're shooting into the crossbows at this point, and even the ones they're not hitting, they're hitting the Erebor legionaries. That will force the Dwarves into moving a little bit. Give the Dwarves something to think about. Back comes yet more Misty Mountains forces. So a pretty well organised retreat there, all things considered, by the Misty Mountains, considering that was clearly a decision that was reached rather quickly. Everything sort of broke off from the front line rapidly, and I will also give credit to Isengard. When they saw that they were retreating, they didn't hang around, they did move forward with everything. Erebor took a little longer, but they still did the same thing. We're not actually going to be able to see this pathway in action. You can see that there is sort of a more narrow choke point connecting these two areas, but the defenders are not going to be using that, and of course neither are the attackers now that this is their territory. But more and more we're going to be heading towards a situation here at the back around the keep of LINHIR. Amron! Are they actually hitting stuff now though? I can't help but feel as though most of these arrows are probably pinging harmlessly off the that looked like a blank shot, so I think maybe they've gotten the hint and they're moving back. There is still Noldorin Blade Masters as well. Like, that is something that I forgot. They did have 2 Noldorin Blade Masters, so they did manage to save this unit, which is a significant one to save. Certainly not the easiest to deal with. But the loss of most of their army, the announcer is still not feeling all that confident. Forward comes some Trollman. As the heavy goblin spears forming up another front line. Dunman Hunters getting into position to try and skirmish down these front lines, but heavy goblin spears will probably be able to stand up to that reasonably well, and even if they don't, not really the sort of thing the Misty Mountains will care too much about. That one there just skewered a half-orc spear guard, as Erebor and Isengard have finally fought their way towards one another, and their forces can now join up for the final assault on the keep. Let's see what's going on back here. Half-orc spear guard moving forwards. We also have the Uruk-hai crossbowman. That's a little bit more of a concern for the heavy goblin crossbows, just because they'll take more heavy goblin spears, I should say, because they'll take more damage. There's also those Snaga skirmishers, so this isn't good for the Misty Mountains because they're going to be losing these men hand over fist. Dunman Hunters, Rhudaur Swordsman on the march forward. There's Uruk-hai pikes to help shore things up should it be necessary. But perhaps a bit of a problem, these dwarven units don't seem to be in too much of a hurry to reinforce their allies over here, and that is leading to a bit of a problem. These cave trolls are being put down. I think they are going to be able to fight their way out of this regardless, but perhaps a few more losses than was necessary. Actually no, looking at this, the dwarves did the right thing, but be interesting to see how Harad and the Misty Mountains decide to approach this. It looks as though they're going to sort of retreat fully up the hill, give them a massive height advantage. Of course, it'll give them the ideal platform to use their mangonel from, but it'll also give them a lot of license to use these high cliffs for their archers. Goblin King's bodyguard's still alive. Still got those demons of the desert as well, champions of Nafrat, so a lot of units of good quality, but certainly the defenders under the cosh a little bit when it comes to their total manpower that they have remaining. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be pretty tough, I think. Here's the Uruk-hai infantry. Marching forward now, we have some Uruk-hai pikemen, obviously just the rear guard of these heavy goblin spears, easily overwhelmed by a combination of Rhudaur and Isengard infantry. Still some Snaga skirmishers there as well. A lot of pikes, but pikes not necessarily what they need when the defenders are clearly going to be placing most of their eggs into the ranged basket. Mountain Uruk Coast again, another rear guard being placed just to delay the inevitable advance of Isengard, and on this side Erebor. Those weird looking swords that they have. Meanwhile, is that a shot from the mangonel? I mean, it is firing, but what at? mean, it's got to be this big blob here, right? The Hashari Stalkers are also firing into it. Ranger fire going to be very nasty indeed. There's still the Wardens of Elos Tyrion. Go on, Mangonel, fire. You have a perfect blob. Will they fire? Come on. You know you want to. There we go. They did manage to score a direct hit that time. I mean, again, the Mangonel is so... It's so difficult to use the Mangonel. It's such an unpredictable thing. Mountain Oak Coast finally broken and routing off. Meanwhile, Isengard leading the charge up the hill, being rapidly reinforced by the forces of Rhudaur. These Rhudaur Swordsmen getting in here, but I'm just going to back up a little bit before the game crashes yet again, as the Hashari Stalkers rip their way through that front line. A lot of arrow fire coming in now. Heavy Goblin crossbows also shooting into the side, so this is going to be a very punishing climb indeed for the attackers as they try and make their way up to the keep at the top. But really the defenders, if they're going to win this fight, it kind of has to be this way from now until the end of the battle, because they really don't have anywhere else they can retreat to. Rhudaurs have their catapult, however, which is bad news for the Mangonel, because the Mangonel's a fairly beefy unit model. Chances are, without flaming shot on, they should be able to find a decent hit onto the Mangonel itself at some point, and not just the crew, as just happened there. Continuing to move forwards, the Hashari Stalkers have stopped firing for the time being. Javelins are firing away now, Mahud Beast Hunters. A lot of morale damage being done, certainly. Not necessarily a huge amount of infantry blocking the way, though, just a single unit of dismounted Serpent Guard. I mean, they can very quickly send forward the champions of Nafarat should they need to, but he plays a dangerous game. That's going to be enough. Yeah, you can see there already some of these units becoming shaken in the presence of the mighty Mangonel. Some of those Rhudaur clansmen actually fighting to the death now. Will the catapult score a good hit on that Orc Mangonel? There's a lot of units still back here. Froggy setting up some of his more elite units. You should probably think about sending at least one of them forward so that the attack can keep going. If you base your entire assault around nothing but trash, it's not going to make its way through, especially not when there's so much morale damage being done by the Mangonel and by all of those ranged units. Trying now to hit something a little bit more valuable to the defenders here at the top of the hill. Another nice hit there from the Mangonel, sending the Snaga routing. That'll stop errant javelins from hitting the front line at the very least. Trollman of Harad moving forward to help shore up the line. Arrows from the attackers trying to find decent marks. Wardens of Elos Tyrion also firing into the side of the assault over here, so the Wardens of Elos Tyrion, of course, going to be able to clean up in terms of kills here, you would imagine. Those two audio files, adding them was a real mistake. And Illidan, that's it. The elves don't shut the hell up now. Mangonels. Ah yes, because the crew are gone. So now it's just shared.txt st _ Mangonels. Iron for halberds, trudging their way forwards. Half-Orc Spearguard are here. Oof, bit of friendly fire is not really what the attackers needed. A lot of their units are already broken and fighting to the death. Heavy Goblin crossbows again. I really don't want to get closer because for some reason on the newer maps the game has had a real habit of crashing lately. Most unfortunate. Mahud Beast Hunters also adding themselves to the front line. Black Orcs the mountains, so no way through for the attackers, and this could be exactly what the defenders needed. Mixed fortunes earlier on in the battle, but here they can dictate the pace when it's only in a single choke point, especially when it's uphill. They've got the ideal position to fire. They've got their Hashari throwing their daggers into the centre mass of that attack as well. Wardens of Elos Tyrion, I think, out of ammunition, which is blessed relief for the attackers, I'm sure. Pulling out their dual swords, getting ready to do their bit in melee as well. Their reward for a hard day of shooting people with their bows is they must now charge into melee and deal with stuff like Nalskai and Berserkers. More dwarves heading up the hill. It's only axe throwers though, so once again they won't be too concerned about that. The Hashari Stalkers opening up. Now the Wardens of Elos Tyrion are out of ammo. no rest for the weary, the second unit of Rangers kicks into action. And there we can see the heavy goblin crossbows also firing away, trying to get some kills onto the ready and waiting Erebor legionaries. As we're rapidly approaching the final phases of this battle, the Uruk-hai archers that are out of ammunition are moving forward. Of course, there are still attacking reinforcements as far back as this, so it's certainly by no means over for the attacks. It's not like this is just all they had, otherwise yes, I would say certainly it'll be an easy matter for the defenders to go on and win this, but that is not the case. They still have some very strong units back here as well. Blackback Mountain Berserkers reveal themselves once more. The Hashari Rangers and Assassins up here on the hill continuing to do a lot of damage. A lot of these very basic units rout very easily, of course. There's still the Dwarven Elites ready and waiting, the Dragon Slayers of Eric Mithrin. The Obsidian Guard also moving forward. Granadine Pikemen ready to be sent in as well. Ironically, this would be the ideal situation for the Witchers, but they were used earlier on in the quick demolition of Linden's outer defence. Now they're going to try and do some damage. That was a good hit there onto the Hashari Stalkers. Hit one of the Mangonels as well, although that's a moot point now that the crew is gone. What am I actually going for? Maybe the Noldorin Blade Masters? More daggers being used here into the middle. Ironfoot units holding down the front line across some heavy goblin crossbows coming over here. That was a really good hit. Holy moly. That is a ton of those Noldorin Blade Masters that Linden must have done. Oh man, that's another really good hit as well. I mean, he was kind of asking for it for showing right down the line as he was retreating. I'm sure that's crippling for Linden. He managed to save that unit earlier on from the hands of Angmar, only to have it flattened by a catapult here in the late game. Those are two... Catapults can be so frustrating sometimes with how they don't hit as well as you want them to, but that is ideal from them. And doing it again, Linden just perfectly in place for the catapult to thread the needle right down these units. This time it's the Wardens of Alos Tyrion getting hit. And now they're just being sent in. I mean, they've already been damaged so much they may as well be sent in right now into this very grindy choke point fight that this battle has turned into. A lot of the Bite Hand banners trying to make their way up the hill. Mahud Beast Hunters firing their javelins in, doing yet more damage. This is going to be the issue, I think, for the attackers. They're taking so much damage as they move up the hill. That's another really good hit from the catapult though. Rhudaur's catapult really starting to do the business here. That may be the turning point. Demons of the Desert are still here. If they still have ammunition, I think it's getting to the point where they should probably start thinking about using it if they do. You can see here some Granadine Rangers perfectly in position here to start shooting along the defending lines as well. Froggy and his Rhudaur army have done really well so far here. Very, very well done. Another bombardment coming in from the catapult. Nothing too bad this time, literally only a couple of kills on the Harlinden Guard, but that catapult has already more than earned its keep. Nazkai, Rhudaur Clansmen moving forward. Do they have the manpower to sort of see this one through now, the attackers? Another really nice hit into the Wardens of Alos Tyrion. Linden, despite having the fewest men left here in the late game, I think. Although maybe that's the Misty Mountains now, to be fair. Misty Mountains have lost a lot of men defending this hill, but Linden have taken nearly all of the devastating hits from that Rhudaur catapult. Amusingly enough. Harlinden Guard just reorganising themselves. Demons of the Desert moving further forwards. Try and pin them with a few of those javies. Still the blackbacks that can be sent in, of course, but at this point there's really nothing from a ranged sense other than the demons that can be used, I don't think. I mean, this could be... This, I think, is make or break for the defender. If they get some really nice damage down here, they could go on to win this battle. That's going to send a ton of these units flying. It looks more devastating than it is. To be fair, it's still pretty devastating. Now in come the blackbacks, so this is a power play by the defenders, trying to do enough damage here to really break the back of this invading army. Still those two units of Erebor Legionaries, there's still the Obsidian Guard and the Dragon Slayers, I think, waiting down here. So yeah, there's still the Dwarven Elites. That, I think, was just as much friendly fire as it was hitting the enemy, which is a risky game to play. You can actually see there that there is some routing now from Isengard. following the damage from the demons and the friendly fire that the catapult meted out. The rest of Rhudaur's army, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's not much left from an attacking perspective. Can they see this one over the line? It's gone from being a battle more about the wide open spaces and how you can use them in a siege to being a very centred battle on one choke point. Some demons, serpent's fangs, champions of Nafrat, so Harad really are the ones with men left here in the final stages. Will LINHIR remain in Linden's hands, or what's left of Linden? I'm going to say it could go into the dwarves, are technically named as the de facto leaders for this invasion with all of their slaves, but I mean, Rhudaur would certainly feel aggrieved if they weren't granted LINHIR for themselves. You can see that the Hashari Stalkers a bit depleted at this point, but still, they're still rangers. That could be a real difference maker here going into the final phases. The Demons of the Desert, I think they still have ammunition. They're still waiting here. And I think Froggy senses that as well, because he's trying to use the catapult to get yet another devastating hit on a defending unit. Will he be successful? I mean, Harad is just going to stand here. That is bold. That is brave, because, again, just one hit centre mass could be enough to really... That's not as devastating as it could have been, but Harad's playing with fire here, and I think, yeah, like, just dump your ammunition now into this attacking force. Do the business. Harland and Guard moving forwards. There's still the Serpent's Fangs and Champions of Nafrat that can be used. Grenadine Pikemen getting absolutely shredded by something. What on earth was that? Oh, it must have been the Javelins. Maybe sensing that they are the true threat here in the late game? Perhaps. This battle is going to be decided one way or the other fairly soon. And the attackers don't show signs of backing down just yet, but I mean, they've still got the 2 units of Erebor Legionaries, which are now moving in. The Dwarven Elite's also moving forward, so I think this really is the final roll of the dice for the attackers. They're going to try and break the defender's spirit now. And victory or death it will be. Still the Nars Kai in the background there as well, which is another big factor in the late game. Very damaging unit. Catapult trying to get into position, I think, to shoot right through, but I mean, I don't really know if they've got the best hit. I mean, this cliff, it sort of juts out a little bit, making a shot very difficult. They'd be very fortunate to get a good shot in from there, I think. He's going to try it, though. In come the Mahout Beast Hunters, trying to shore up the line further. I don't know. These Dwarven units are taking their sweet time getting up the hill, which may be to their detriment, ultimately. Oof. He was actually quite fortunate there, Froggy, that he missed, because that would have been mainly his units. It would be devastating for the attackers at this point, with all the good work that catapult has done, as it also proved to be their demise. Because again, routing would be a real problem. With a direct hit right into the centre of your own men, with a fiery ball of death, it's going to be enough to send most of them running. These Ashari Stalkers still have a bit of ammo. This is going to be a real kicker though. The Dwarves are sending in their elites, and there's still the Nars Kai, which are now being sent forward here. Pretty much everything at this point is being thrown in, which means the opposite is also going to be true. The Demons of the Desert, the Serpent's Fangs, and the Champions of Nafrat will also join the fray. And ultimately, who wins? The Ashari Stalkers will be chipping in with a bit of damage, but it's not going to be as much as like a full unit of Rangers can do. The Catapult's a real wild card here in the late game, because I mean, it could potentially win the game for the defenders as much as the attackers, based on how densely packed everyone is. And the attackers, you'd have to say, probably are going to be the ones with the lower morale here. A lot of Rhudaur's forces are not really fancying this fight all that much. The Hashari Stalkers out of ammunition now, charging into melee. So that's it, pretty much. This is going to be the end. Catapult is going to try and fire, but I mean, this is going to be... It's so risky, this. Again, it goes right over the heads of not only the enemy, but his own men. And like I said, like Erebor, one weakness they do have is that their morale is maybe not necessarily as good as you would think it would be. And Rhudaur, while they have better morale than the evil men, they're still evil men. But I think that's a moot point now. In come Rhudaur. Oh yeah, well Rhudaur had those units in reserve as well. So I think it's going to be a bridge too far for the defenders. I think Rhudaur have just managed their resources a little bit too well. I think they've worked in tandem with Erebor and Isengard a bit too well to sort of go in. I think the attackers probably have this one now. Still the javelins, there's still those Trollshaw axe throwers coming in from left field. It's kind of hard to say. Nazkai. Still a few blackbacks fighting hard on the front line. In come the champions of Nafrat. Were they committed too late? I don't know. Our clansmen that have returned from routing. All of those morale shocks which happened earlier in the fight. I think we can safely go up to ×2 speed here, to be honest with you. The Reforged javelins, I should say, revealing themselves. Oh yeah, that's another unit that I completely forgot about. The Goblin King's Bodyguard coming back. Another twist in the tail. Another solid General's Bodyguard unit coming around here to try and block the advance of units like the Franodine Berserkers. Really, really close fight this. I mean, it is going to come down to just outright melee might, I think. To be fair, though, the javelins and the axe throwers, again, it's another thing which I think Rhudaur, it might just make them just that little bit too strong here. Let's not forget the Dwarven infantry, which is in and amongst this as well, though defeat seems certain. You know, units like the champions of Nafrat have got a very heavy AP focus. The Blackback Berserkers in there as well, still kicking. They've been in melee for quite a while at this point, and they still have 20 men. In come the returning Rhudaur clansmen, as well as the Witch Realm Enslavers, another unit the defenders are going to have to deal with here as this fight continues. What a battle this has been. Like, there's Franodine Berserkers. It says defeat seems certain, but I can't... Like, with the Ferodrum Javelin still down there, there's Trollshaw axe throwers still firing. With that support, and obviously they can come into melee as well. Trollshaws may not be that good in melee, but Ferodrum Javelins can pull their weight. Surely that's going to be enough to tip the defenders over the edge, but maybe this thin line can hold on until the bitter end. But I really do doubt it. I mean, look at the amount of Obsidian Guard that are still left. Like, this is where the Obsidian Guard are in their element as well. They don't necessarily kill things as quickly as the Dragon Slayers, but they're so difficult to kill. And at this point, yeah, like the addition of the Witch Realm Enslavers, I think, is finally breaking the back of the defenders, and I think this is going to be the end. And LINHIR will belong to the dwarves this day, and their underlings. I wonder what the dwarves would even do here. There's nothing really that they can mine. Well, no matter. Blackback Mountain Berserkers defeat a distinct possibility. You don't say. In come the Trollshaw Axos, I think, having thrown their entire payload, or have they? They may as well commit themselves to melee. Yeah, the Uruk-hai Archers maybe thinking of running there. There goes the Isengard General. There's Azog right in front of him as well with his rather interesting looking claw hands. And they do still have a bit of ammunition by the looks of things. How about that? There goes Azog. Yes, indeed. Obsidian Guard leaving, like I said, the Obsidian Guard able to withstand huge amounts of punishment in melee. A few Snaga in and amongst the bodies. There goes the Harad General, the Rhudaur General, right there as well. Was he the one that killed him as well? That would have been something. There are the Serpent's Fangs. Got to be some locked morale units in here because the Serpent's Fangs are broken and fighting to the death. The Blackback Berserkers, I don't think they can rout. I think they are locked morale, so they're just going to stand here and fight and kill as many as they can. That won't be all that many, though, considering the units that are all around them. They've managed to get an Ironfoot Spear, but I don't think they'll be able to get much more than that. A valiant effort indeed, though. Very, very close. Another very close battle on a new map. And ultimately, you know, Linden, like, they just weren't able, like, ultimately Angmar did so much damage to themselves they couldn't accomplish much else themselves either. But Linden's army was blown right through. And then, of course, you know, losing those Noldorin Blade Masters, like, it's a snowball effect. That would have had a significant impact on this fight in the late game. I don't know if it would have been enough to hand the defenders the victory, but it would have made them run the attackers damned close. And there it is. Obviously, Harad doing a very good job in terms of kills. No, Misty Mountains getting less, but then they were up against the dwarves on their side, so not too surprising. Linden, of course, getting the least, but then considering what happened to them early on, that's not too surprising. The attackers working very nicely in tandem, the dwarves taking the lead in terms of kills. But again, I've got to give the MVP here to Rhudaur. I think they really held the assault together and did very well. But the attackers played very well all in all, to be honest with you. Let's see what did the damage for the Misty Mountains. Having a look at this, we can see breaking 200 kills on heavy goblin crossbows. They obviously did very well against the dwarves. Breaking 200 kills on the blackback berserkers as well, and on the orc mangonel. So the mangonel certainly pulling its weight there. A few units breaking 100 as well. But against the dwarves, your basic units are always going to struggle a little bit to pick up a lot of kills if you're playing as the Misty Mountains. But yeah, big thank you to Steward of Dale for this one. Obviously, it's always good to see a newer map. The port town of LINHIR. But yeah, as I said, next replay I'm going to do is probably going to be that really big one on the what was dubbed the Witch-King Sanctum. Where the Witch King is going to be defending against a horde of angry people from the west, including hobbits. So that'll be an interesting one. Obviously, it's a very long one. I think it was around 60k frames when I saw it. So yeah, that's going to be one where I'm going to need sort of a whole session, I think, just to record that one alone, which is why I didn't do it now. But yeah, that's going to be another new map which has been added to the game somewhat recently. I'm glad to see all of these newer maps being used. Obviously, it keeps things fresh, and that's always good to see. So yeah, again, I do have other things, like I do still have that Bur Sagath scenario, which is also on the agenda, but obviously I did do Bur Sagath on this patch already, so you know, newer maps will get, if it's a map that I haven't done before, then it will always get priority and always be bumped up higher on the list than maps that I've already seen before. That's just how it is. I like to do the newer maps first, just so we can see something brand new. But don't worry, the Bur Sagath one will be coming, and I will also, after that, I think, make a return to Rivendell at some point pretty soon. But yeah, plenty to be getting along with. And yeah, big thank you to Steward of Dale, big thank you to all of the players involved in this game. Hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next.